When we were younger, passion burned through the night. Nothing was impossible when we were younger. Now this is me. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Songs Nobody Asked Me For. My name's Nigel. I am the singer and songwriter of the indie funk band The Curve, based in Plymouth. And yeah, you're very welcome. It's now beginning of March, and yeah, for those of you that live in the UK, we've had. I live down in Cornwall here, and we've had at least, I think, 40 days of rain, and suddenly we've had 2 or 3 days without rain, and it's like I'm living in a different world and a different country. And 2 days ago, the sun was shining, and man, it was just so nice, so nice. It's not shining today, but it's dry outside, and just makes you want to be outside, you know. But of course, I'm true and loyal to all those millions of fans watching this podcast, and so here I am doing a podcast. I've caught up a bit on myself, I think. So I don't know when this will come out. Maybe May. I kind of purposely haven't done any for a few weeks, just to try and allow myself to slowly catch up, to be slightly more contemporaneous. But it's kind of feels like quite a good time at the moment. A little nervy. There's lots of sort of elements around that sort of feel good, and a couple that are uncertain. So mainly the uncertainty is we're sounding really good. We're playing really well, and gigs ahead of us. But if you'll remember from this, our drummer had a really nasty accident, and although his thumb's recovering, and he's part of the band, really great part of the band now, and it's fantastic to have him as part of that. We know that at some point in the next couple of months he's going to need to have an operation to reattach the tendon to his thumb. I think that's what he's having done, and that will probably take him out of action for a month or at least a few weeks, maybe a couple of months. I have no idea. And it's difficult planning and trying to work out doing stuff when you know that's around, really. And I feel it's been the theme of the year, really, from right when he had that happen, and when we had a new drummer coming along, and it meant we couldn't do some things and we could do others. And it's all part of the adventure, and I kind of keep trying to look at the longer picture, that once we get through all of this, it's going to be amazing, because he's really brought so much more to the band, and Gray playing percussion now. And then we've had him off for 3 weeks because he's had COVID, and it's just all these things happen, and they happen for any people working, any people in a project, any people with an interest. These things happen, but it's just a frustrating time in that way. Now, that said, we played our first gig of the new year at the B Bar a couple of weeks back. It was amazing. It was a really good gig. Really enjoyed it. I think we played really well. But I'm going to play a little clip of it now because I'm proud of it, and I think it worked really well. And I'm going to play it now. So, I think I enjoyed it, and it was busy. The other thing I've done is I've now set up, it's very terrifying, my first two proposed, what would you call them, events around this podcast. Songs nobody asked us for. And I have Craig Osman and Rob C, who I've interviewed right at the beginning of this podcast, are both playing with us at the Roundabout Pub in Plymouth on 24th of April. And that will have happened possibly by now. So either you'll all know about that or it didn't go very well. I'm hoping it's going to go well. I can't see why not. But I realise a lot of it's in my own hands in terms of how I promote it, what I do to promote it, how I get other people to promote it, etc., etc. As we speak at the moment, the lovely Ollie is hopefully just doing some sort of artwork for me to sort of create a sort of template of a poster or something that I would use on social media, but also print out that has a sort of, in my head, a theme would be the same each time we do one of these things, but with different artists, and so it would be a brand, I suppose. And then I booked another one for when is it? 2nd of October, I think it is. And that is ahead of us here, isn't it? And that's with the Ragdolls. I'm really excited to be playing with them as well. In the new year, then I'm hoping to do another one. I'm trying to pin Cat Rose down for to do one with us. I've got Holly Ebony agreed to do one. There's a few people, anybody that and Horse Divorce, of course. I haven't even spoken to them about doing one yet. So there's some possibility and traction ahead of me. It just depends how these first two go, really. And then, if we manage to get some people in, the Roundabout will be pleased about that, I'm imagining, and be happy for me to do it. We kind of agreed between us to do them, in that they're not charging me, we're not charging them to come play, and so it's kind of a free event, which is what I needed. Really, really useful, and I thank them for that. It's a great venue, it's right in the middle of town, near the university. So I got to really get into the university as well, which is something I've not done before. But again, maybe you'll know about that by now, maybe you won't. I've got some ideas about that. I'm going to try and tap into the people I spoke to on the BBC when I did a little interview about this podcast. And Ocean City Radio have been really supportive. I've been back in touch with them. They're going to promote it for me. So, I do what I do, really. Today I was kind of thinking about... there are a few areas, and some of which I can speak to and some of which I can't really. And when I interviewed Cat Rose quite a while back, and I'm hoping to have this conversation again at some point, I talked about the sort of, I'll call it the prejudice of gender within the music industry. And one of the things I think I said to her, or I've said on a previous podcast, is I'm curious to meet a woman songwriter who's of my age, out there playing, and I've yet to find one really, and I'm sure they must be around, and I just haven't found those contacts yet, or to know somebody who would be in that position. And I think that's one element I really want to sort of address, or to speak to somebody about, think about on this. I think there's a race and culture issue that sits within it as well, which again I don't really know any black or Asian musicians in Plymouth. Or black or Asian bands, actually, and I'm not sure. They must be around, and maybe they are, maybe they're not, I don't know. I really would love to speak and meet some people from different backgrounds and countries that maybe are playing here. That would be really interesting, and to get their experience. Pav and I have our own adventures and experiences of that, and we talk about some of that sometimes, but it would be interesting to know what that's like in the Southwest. The area I wanted to talk to you about today was about age, really, because I think that's another element, an area where prejudice and differences around, really. I think it always has been in the music business, and I suppose if I look back to when I was younger, the idea of these old blokes dancing around playing, it wasn't really around so much because, I guess if I think of rock music evolving in the 60s, when I'm doing this first iteration of music in 79, 80, there aren't the ancient musicians around. Like, you see the Stones and people doing amazing stuff, still being out there playing. I saw something the other day from, what's his name, Francis Rossi from Status Quo, still out there. He's just doing this little tour of... And I noticed he's got one of these, I think they're called Fender Acoustasonic guitars. And they're interesting. I got one once when I was... before I bought my lovely Gretsch, and it was the shape of a Fender. The one I bought was the shape of a Fender Telecaster, hollow-bodied. So it's kind of It looks like an electric guitar, but it's really light. I mean, literally. I mean, it felt like it was too light for me, actually, in the end. I had problems with it. I'll tell you this story, and then we'll get back onto the plot, really. But it was interesting, and the idea of it is that you can. It's got various settings, so you can set it to sound like a parlor acoustic guitar, or you can set it to sound like a dreadnought acoustic guitar, or you can also set it to sound like an electric guitar. Had 4 or 5 different settings of sound, and I looked at the reviews. I thought that'd be really interesting. And this is when I was playing the acoustic guitar still, and I thought I really want to move into playing the electric guitar for a number of reasons. I thought it might look better. I'm tired of being an acoustic guitar player in an electric band. We're no longer an acoustic band, which we used to advertise as. But also, this is the first hint of age, really, that I wanted to make sure I could still play. And it's actually quite hard to play an acoustic guitar. It's good for me. I keep playing an acoustic guitar, but as your fingers get a little bit older, I was kind of thinking, well, it would be good to move to the electric guitar. That's actually easier to play because, less effort on the old joints as you get older, really. These are things you have to think about when you get older. Anyway, I bought this guitar. I was going to buy a new one. It was going to be my big investment, which is what this guitar was. The only time I've ever spent that amount of money on a guitar, and I thought I'm going to buy one. But then I saw a second-hand one in a shop in the southwest. I won't name them. I wanted to name them at the time because I'm pretty pissed off with them, really. But I got this guitar, and it wasn't quite right. There was something slightly wrong with it. It had a sort of horrible distorty sound on it, and I thought, oh, that's not right. So I contacted them, and I made a mistake because I would always go and try guitar out, and I thought it was quite a way, and I thought, do you know what? I rang them up and I said, look, I'd always try guitar out, and they said, oh, the returns policy is exactly the same. If you get it sent to you and you don't like it, you can just send it back. And I thought, well, what a faff, but I thought, all right, I'll do it, hoping that I wouldn't need to, but I did. So I packed it up in all the original packaging, really properly packed it up again because it was very, very fragile when I got it. And the mistake I made was I looked into sending it back, and I think it was Royal Mail or something that I didn't see the exclusions to their insurance. So it made a big ad coming up saying, "Oh, pay extra for the thing, to send it back," and so I did. But then there was another thing that said see terms and conditions, which I didn't look at, which was slightly smaller. On it said it didn't cover musical instruments. And you can see what's going to happen. The shop get it back and say, oh no, it was all smashed up. I said, no, you're kidding. Completely destroyed, unrepairable. And so we can't give you your money back. And then Royal Mail said I couldn't get any money. I got sort of 20 quid or something from them. I contested it. They disagreed. I think they gave me another £5 or something, or £10 for kindness, as it were, and that was that, really. And I tried to negotiate with the shop because I was kind of saying, in a sense, look, you bought this for this. Because they were being very sympathetic, and I hope you managed to get your money back, and I said, look, I didn't get my money back. You made a profit out of this, because I thought it was a little bit sus as well, to be honest, because they got a guitar back that wasn't working and they wouldn't have been able to sell. And yet there it is broken, and I don't know. I'm not going to get into that, but I kind of felt something was a bit fishy. But I just thought they could send me back the profit they made, really, because I said, well, if you send me back the profit, you've not lost anything, and I get a little bit of my money back, because it was a big amount of money for me, and I didn't have the money at that time to do it again, really. But they wouldn't do that. I was pretty pissed off, really. And boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, whoever you are, don't buy a very expensive thing online. Always go and look at it. So when I bought the Gretsch, eventually I was able to find myself in a position to buy another guitar. I went up to London, I went to Camden, went to Guitar. It was a great experience. They'd arranged for this guitar to be there so I could try it out. There were 2 there that I was interested in. But the green one particularly I liked because it was unusual, really. And I tried the green one. I think I tried a black one, maybe. But the green one was for me. And was able to try it, make sure it was all right, try it with a couple of amps, try it in a different. Yeah, it was good. It was all good. And I was pretty happy with it, really. Other than that, I really hate sitting in music shops playing the guitar because I get very self-conscious. So, how on earth did I get onto that? This is the thing about getting older, you see. You ramble a bit and then you start to lose where you are. Um, I think I was talking about Francis Rossi playing one of these guitars. So he obviously has found it great. I mean, I've seen him use it a lot, and I think again, you'd have to put. It was so light, you barely had to sort of put much effort into that strength thing, which you do with other guitars. So I thought it's a really sensible idea. So there's these older guys playing, older musicians playing, and you see them all the time now because we have that massive wealth of amazing musicians who did all this amazing stuff in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and we still want to hear from them, and they're still around and they play. But I think when I was younger, I probably would have been very sniffy of older people out there playing. I think and it wasn't really a thing that I came across. I can't remember being up in London and ever playing with anybody that wasn't around our age in the various gigs and places that we played when we played with other bands. They were always young bands because I think that was what it was at that time. And like many things, fashion, was so much more. You had to be this or you had to be this. Whereas nowadays everybody's very eclectic and in the main, and you can wear what you want. But I think you can do what you want these days, and I think that's a really liberating thing. And I think as an older person playing music, I love the fact that I can be out there playing music still in a way that I don't necessarily think I could have done in the 80s. Maybe I could, maybe I couldn't, I don't know. But I think ageism has always sat within the music industry. And I had a friend, I think his name was Pete. Well, he was a good friend. I've just lost contact over the years. And yeah, he was a person I met at a time when I was really interested in doing something with my music. And I was looking into um, doing music for film. I may have talked about this before. Um, but he was a person that was doing that, and I met him, and he was a really useful person to me. Because in a way, he kind of put me off of it. Um, but he was one of a couple of people I met around that time. I met a session musician who was out there playing with quite well known people around, and he was hating every minute of it. And he was really interested in the fact that I was at that time an occupational therapist in mental health, and I was there going, oh wow, it must be amazing being making money, living out music, and he said, well, it's okay, but I have to play the same thing every night, and I have to do what I'm told, and I have to sort of learn things in a particular way and do things in the way that I'm directed to, and I've got no creativity within it at all. And I love the idea of what you're doing. It sounds really creative and really interesting. And, grass is greener and all of that, really. So I suppose that was interesting. But Pete told me about, he used to write music for television and stuff. He'd got quite a lot of success in that he would, some programs on the Discovery Channel, for example, his music would be the theme music for that, and so various television things, corporate things that he would do the music for. But I always remember him telling me, and he was probably, when I met him, I think he was probably mid 40s. And I probably met him in my late 30s, early 30s. No, mid 30s rather, mid 30s, late 30s, and he was in his mid 40s, I think, so a bit older than me. Um, but he said to me that one of the biggest dilemmas was his age. Even within that side of the music industry, well, you wouldn't think it would matter. But he said he was very aware that if he was to turn up to a company to do a pitch, because he said, people would reach out for him to do work. He said that more and more he was turning up to companies, and the chief executive, in his words, was a youngster. They would be in their 20s, late 20s, and they would look at him and he wouldn't get the gig. He wouldn't get the work. That was his experience of it, not mine, his experience of it. And so he more and more he was doing stuff online. He was sending stuff, and this was before that was just routine really. He'd send stuff on email, send stuff via. Well, yeah, it would have been email then really, because there wasn't really social media around back then. He would send stuff on email because he didn't want people to see how old he was. And it's kind of weird within that field, you would think, because you wouldn't really think it would matter, but it seemed to matter. The other thing about that field, he said, is that things had changed from, you would apply or try to do something and people would listen to some of your music that you'd done and say, oh yeah, I'll get you to do this. But instead, he said that you had to create the actual music. So if you were vying to do the theme tune to a program or some incidental music, you'd have to actually do it all. And then someone would get all of these ones that had all been done and select one. And of course, what that meant is he might put in days and days of work for a piece of music that then wasn't wasn't accepted, wasn't taken on board. So it was difficult. But I don't think I've answered my initial question about ageism in the music yet. What I find at the moment interesting, I suppose, and I'm just trying to think it through really, is that I don't experience that in an overt way. However, I think there are fields and avenues that are not open to me in quite the same way as they might be to younger bands. And some of that might be new band nights, for example, or new band radio programs, where we're almost seen as, because we're older, we're not seen as a new band. And in a sense, we are a new band because, I mean, we're a very new band in our current format. I've not been around for I've been around playing music for many decades, but in terms of the band, I mean, John and I have been together for, I think we worked out about 15 years, so it's quite a long time. That's not new. But you try to find these opportunities or ways of moving forward. And we're not a big established band, so I consider that to be fair to have opportunities to be a new band things, but they're not always accessible and available to us. And that will be particularly true with festivals when they're looking for sort of new bands. There's sometimes in a festival they'll have a sort of almost like a competition or a tryout for new bands to be. They'll have a new band slot, and I don't think we stand any chance of that because we're older. And it's a really mixed thing for me. I've met, as you'll know on this, a couple of really young, much younger musicians. I really want everything for them, more than I do for me actually, and I mean that. I really do want those younger bands to succeed, and for some of them, I mean, I think the Ragdolls work really hard, and I see them out and about. I see them up in London. They're really going around, and we don't do that. I can't do that these days. My life does dictates in a way that means I can't really. I'm not really sure I want to go off and tour all around the country. Cat Rose has done that as well. So I think people go out and they make their opportunities, and I think that's really important. But I also think that, I think some of those opportunities are not so available to us because we're older, and there's a swing to that. You know me. I'm not going to sit here. I never am these days. Going to sit here and moan about something. I'm observing it really. I don't think it's big. I've not come across it in a big way. And I think I have pluses of being older. And of course, I have pluses of being an older man because older men are sort of privileged with power and opportunity up until I become a decrepit old man. But certainly in my 50s and now in my 60s, I'm very aware of the power and ability that I have as a white man, really. But there are some opportunities that I crave that I can't really get into. Festivals, are really fascinating. I'd really love to sort of work out a key to getting onto a festival bill, but I think our age really does go against us. I have this imagining in my head of people listening to our music and thinking, oh, I like that, and then looking at us and, oh yeah, no, they're a bunch of older guys, or it's an older band. Maybe we want to give an opportunity to a younger band, and I think that's quite right. But I think amongst that, maybe I'd like the opportunities as well. Now, what I see as a plus alongside of my age, I'm going to put a plus into that, would be that as an older person, I have more confidence, I think. So the fact that I'm setting up these two gigs, we've also set up one which we played a long time ago on this now. In a couple of weeks' time, we're playing at Cafe Momus. I've set that up. Craig's coming to play with us for the first time. I'm looking forward to him coming and doing that with us. But I think it takes a fair amount of confidence just to decide you're going to set something up. So setting up the roundabout stuff, for the podcast is it takes a lot of confidence to do, really. I'm cacking myself. I can't deny. I really am. And as I say, by the time this is out, it will have been and it will have done. But I think that also comes from age. So I'm in this really odd space, and when I'm talking to radio people or something like that, I come across as an older, experienced musician. And yet I'm in a band where to get gigs, we almost have to be approaching things as a new band, or look, we're here, can we come and play, we can try out. And it's a strange contradiction of places, really, the old and the new, where one part of that gives me an advantage of being sort of someone who comes across as more experienced, but a disadvantage of trying to play in a field that still lends itself to younger people is hard, really. And I met a group of older guys playing in a band at a showcase event. Exeter Phoenix do this, and I think they've asked us if we'll do another one, on which I need to say yes to at some point soon. They'd have a new bands showcase, but it was an older band playing it, and they were really. He was the guy who was the songwriter of that, was really very bitter and twisted about it all in a way that I hope through the antidote of doing this podcast I haven't become, because I just, it is what it is. That's how I mostly see it these days. But he was kind of really, there's no opportunity for us. They take one look at us and it's going to think we're too old. And I thought, yeah, well, but we have to find our space within this. We have to kind of think, well, I have to push for my opportunities and use the advantages I have as well as the disadvantages, so that the disadvantages don't become debilitating, I think. Yeah, I think it's important. Well, look, I'm not sure I've said very much about it, but I have said some about it. Got too caught up in acoustasonic guitars, I think. But look, been lovely to talk to you. I'm trying to line up some more interviews at the moment. I put some feelers out to a few people. There's a couple of quite big bands that if I could get them to come and speak to me, it would be amazing. And some local bands that I know, and some musicians, 2 local musicians I'm trying to pin down. And Craig and I have talked, and it may well be that that's the very next episode I do, but Craig and I have talked about trying to do a sort of 2-hander, really, which I've not done before. You get stuck with me, but the idea that maybe I might have a chat with Craig about a theme, and so not about him, but we would meet and we would do one of these together and see. I don't know, see where it goes. So that may be the next one, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about home recording and being a singer-songwriter and playing all the instruments and doing all that stuff. And he's got very recent experience of that. I have very old experience of that, and maybe having a chat about what that's like. And I think that's what we're going to do. So, please subscribe, sign up, all of those things. Some of you have, and a lot of people, if you have, please spread the word. And hopefully with the events, they may have made a difference to this process as well. Come check out the band, #MusicTheCurve. Bunch of old guys, trying to sort of hang in there and keep producing original music. Original music, that's the thing. It's the whole key of this whole thing, isn't it, really? Trying to re-promote original music in my tiny, teeny way. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Change is a constant. Difference is huge. And when you're not looking, I burn through the night. 'Cause nothing is impossible. Looking doesn't mean